So today, we're going to dive into ADHD, but we're not going to do it with some dry clinical checklist. No, instead, we're going to look at it as a human story, a way of understanding how a brain can be wired, well, completely differently.
So, let's meet James, and this is his plan for the day. Pretty simple, right? I mean, come on, you've probably made a list just like this 1,000 times. Looks totally doable.
Yeah, sounds super simple. A few chores, a bit of schoolwork, all it takes is a little focus. But what happens when that little bit of focus is actually the hardest part of the entire equation?
And this is where our story really kicks off. Because for James, even with the best intentions in the world, that simple plan is about to go completely off the rails. And it all comes down to the unique way his brain is built.
Which brings us to our first big idea, and honestly, it's the key to the whole thing. Thinking of the ADHD brain not as broken, but as a high-performance race car. If you can get this metaphor, everything else is going to click into place.
And you know what's so great about this idea is that it lets us smash the single biggest myth about ADHD right from the start. It is not a deficit of attention. It's not that there's a lack of it. The reality is way more complex and, frankly, way more interesting.
Okay, so picture this. James sits down. The goal is crystal clear: do homework. But then his brain, which is always scanning for something more interesting, picks up the sound of a bird outside. And bam, that reminds him of a funny video, which leads to a new tab and another, and suddenly his attention hasn't vanished. It's just been completely hijacked.
And this gets right to the heart of it. The real issue here is attention regulation. It's not about how much focus you have, it's about your ability to steer it where you want it to go. You know, you can have the most powerful engine in the world, but if the steering wheel is unreliable, you're not getting where you want to go.
And this just nails it perfectly. Imagine a Formula One engine, just raw, incredible power, ready to go. But the brakes, the system meant to slow it down, to control it, those are from a kid's bicycle. All that power, with almost no reliable way to rein it in.
Okay, so if steering is a problem, what about the fuel? What actually gets this race car engine to fire up in the first place? Because it's not what you think.
Look, James knows his homework is important. He even feels guilty about not doing it. But importance is the wrong kind of fuel for his brain. You can see it right here on the table. A boring task with some reward way off in the future, that gives him almost zero dopamine. It literally feels physically painful to even start. But you give him something urgent, something new, something exciting, the dopamine floods in, the engine roars, and bam, you're in hyperfocus.
In this whole dopamine-driven system, it leads to this really wild contradiction, what we can call the focus paradox. How can the exact same brain that struggles to focus for 30 seconds also sometimes focus so intensely it's impossible to stop?
So on one side of the paradox, you've got this. The important homework is sitting there, and the engine is just stalled. No fuel, no go. No amount of just try harder is going to get it started.
But then, on the flip side, James gets curious about something. Anything, and 3 hours vanish. He's now a world-class expert on a topic he didn't even know existed this morning. The race car is flying down the track, and those bicycle brakes have completely melted away. He literally can't stop.
So we've got an attention system that's tough to steer, and a motivation system that runs on special fuel. Let's add one more layer of complexity here, a totally different relationship with time itself.
Yeah, people often call this time blindness. And for a lot of folks with ADHD, time isn't a long, flowing river. It's basically two buckets. There's now, which is real and urgent and right here, and then there's not now, which is just this big, foggy, undefined blob where all future things live. This is exactly why I'll just take a 5-minute break can so easily turn into an hour.
Okay, so what about the CEO of the brain, the part in charge of making all the decisions and plans? What happens when that manager is just constantly frazzled and overwhelmed?
We're talking about something called executive functions. Think of it as the brain's project manager. It plans, it organizes, it gets things started. So when James hears a task like clean your room, his brain doesn't just see one thing. It sees 100 tiny, confusing decisions. Where do I start? What goes where? And the manager just freezes. This is not laziness, it's executive overload.
And you know that same overwhelmed manager, it really struggles with impulse control. Those bicycle brakes fail again. So James might blurt something out or cut someone off without meaning to. And it's usually followed by that awful sinking feeling and that little voice that asks, why did I just do that?
Okay, I know. Hearing all this, it can sound pretty discouraging.
But what if the goal was never to fix the brain? What if the goal is just to learn how to drive it? This is all about rewiring the approach, not rewiring the person.
And this right here, this is the real user manual for the race car brain. Just try harder is useless. What works? Breaking those huge, scary tasks into tiny, non-threatening little steps. Using timers to make not now feel like now. Creating your own deadlines to get that rush of urgency fuel. And maybe the most important one of all, find a way, anyway, to make it interesting.
Look, if you remember only one single thing from our time together, let it be this. An ADHD brain is not broken. It's different. It's not motivated by what society says is important. It's motivated by what it finds interesting. It is running on a completely different operating system.
And that really brings us to the final and most powerful question. Because when you understand this stuff, it's not just about coping. It's about unlocking potential. So what becomes possible when we stop yelling at a race car for not being a minivan, and instead we give it a racetrack and the right driver? What incredible things could happen then?